This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association.
Hi everybody, I'm Huell, and here we are right in the heart of California's wine country. Now we're standing in the middle of a beautiful vineyard. The grapes are ripe and ready to be picked. It's been a good year. We thought it'd be fun to spend the whole day here, kind of have a wine country adventure. But as sometimes happens on our adventures, there's a little catch here, because we're not anywhere near Napa. In fact, we're over 500 miles away. We're spending the entire day in California's first wine country.
It's called the Cucamonga Valley, and it's part of San Bernardino County, about 55 miles east of Los Angeles. Today, it includes the communities of Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, Alta Loma, Fontana, Upland, Etiwanda, and Miraloma. And it was here back in 1839 that California's oldest winery, the Thomas Brothers Winery, was established. By the early 1900s, Secundo Guasti formed the Italian Vineyard Company, and his 5,000 continuous acres of vineyards made it the largest in the world. By the 1920s, over 40,000 acres in the valley were planted in wine grapes. There were over 40 wineries in the region. And this was not only the oldest wine district in California, but one of the largest and finest grape-growing areas in the entire United States. Well, today, the old Guasti winery, with its elegant stone buildings, is quiet and faces an uncertain fate. Due to high land prices and development, the 40 wineries are now down to 3. But the proud tradition of growing grapes and making wine in the Cucamonga Valley is still alive.
Well, I'm standing out in the middle of this beautiful vineyard early on a Saturday morning with Nick Caravitas. And Nick, we're really standing in some of, well, this has to be one of the most historic vineyards in California, because this whole area is part of California's first wine country.
Oh, absolutely, Huell. In fact, this vineyard's over 60 years old that we're in right now. One of the older vineyards, but of course there's much older vineyards in the Cucamonga Valley. And of course that comes from the Cucamonga Peak that's in the background here, and it's the granitic breakdown of soils that come into this vineyard like this. So this is rocky, what we call a sandy loam soil. It's perfect for growing.
This looks like, I mean, I don't know much about this, but is this good soil to grow grapes? It looks very rocky, and well, it's actually very fine soil, but it's full of rocks.
It is what we've found, and what they found, of course, over the last several generations, and we're in our 4th generation for the winery here at Filippi. But this particular soil, these vines aren't watered, they're not irrigated at all. You see, they're fairly stunted, but heavy with fruit. And this particular vine is Grenache, and we're doing a special Rhone blend named after one of my daughters, Rochelle. And but this particular vine, without any water, it ends up with just a perfect shoot length and just the right amount of fruit, and we get just a wonderful balance. And it really does, well, of course, with no irrigation.
So there's a lot of water down in here?
Absolutely.
In the soil?
These are very established vine root systems, and they get all the nutrients and the water they need. We don't put any kind of cover crops like they do today in some modern style vineyards. We do it just the way it's always been done here for over 150 years.
And when we drove up today, I noticed that I was surprised, because I'm used to seeing vineyards with the vines up on trellises.
Well, yes, there's many different types of trellis systems, but this particular system is called a head train system.
Head train system.
Head train system. And what that means is that a vine is generally brought up on a single trunk and trained up like a tree. So it's got a tree trunk, and then you grow arms off the top of it like it's a head. And it's a style, of course, in early California viticulture, that was all that was done, of course, until we started developing different types of trellis system. This particular vineyard, and many of the other vineyards in Cucamonga, happen to just work very well, and we're actually starting to get some notoriety for this old region.
And for doing it the old-fashioned way, the way that they did it 150 years ago here.
You know what's so incredible is that as time goes on, and all the machinery that we develop to make wine in these days, we're going backwards to the simpler, the easier, the gentler, the old ways of doing things, because we're finding that makes a better wine.
How did this area get to be California's first wine country?
Well, Huell, how it began is just simply in the word Cucamonga, the name Cucamonga. It's an Indian tribe from the Serrano Indians of Southern California. They named this area Land of Many Waters and Sandy Places, and that's what the word Cucamonga means.
Wait a minute, Cucamonga means land of
many waters and sandy places.
So there's water here, and there's sand here.
Right, and just the vines flourish. And of course, as soon as that was discovered, it was jumped on, and then it just spread and built from one family to another family, and before you know it, it was Italian immigrants coming and planting. It was Chinese workers coming to do the work that were already in this area from establishing railroads. It was quite an incredible move from development, from a developing standpoint.
Did they know what they were starting when they planted that first vineyard? Did they know that this was the perfect place for it to begin?
It had some similarities to, say, Italian countryside vineyards. It was warm, beautiful soils. It was just the perfect condition, and it reminded the Italians of home. And so yeah, it was just the perfect place to set up new roots.
Wow. Now everybody's taking a break over here now. Are they through here, or are they just taking a break?
Oh, well, not necessarily. Of course, it starts getting a little warm out here. When you're in those vines, Huell, it can get a little dusty, and your mouth can get a little dry, and cold, refreshing glass of water does you a little.
So that is water, not wine they're drinking right now.
We don't have, unlike some of the stores, we don't have wine in our drinking fountains.
I got you. Yeah. Joe, what's happening? We taking a break, or are we through with this field?
We're done with this field, and the crew's going to move and pick at another field for another grower, a friend of mine who you're going to see later on today. And we're going to take these grapes that we just harvested down to the winery, and we're going to crush them.
Let's see the grapes. Where are the grapes? Oh boy.
We have we pick into two different styles depending on what the
end
result
look at all
is.
These grapes.
So we pick into what they call macro bins that are about a half ton a piece, and we end up using a forklift type device to dump them into our destemmer, and of course it begins the process of the wine. Or we use the old style bobtail trucks to go into some different types of pits and receiving bins that we actually process larger amounts in. But this particular grape is destined for a very special wine.
Oh wow, this is wonderful.
You've got Gino over here picking leaves out because he knows I can't stand leaves and weeds or anything that would cause the wine to be bitter, and we've discovered just over the years, of
They're
course,
still cool.
Yes.
From the night air.
The earlier that we can pick in the morning, and in fact some growers have gone to night harvesting just because you retain the cool of the night rather than having to use refrigeration. So we use God's given cool to start our process.
Wow. It's so tempting just to eat these things all the time.
Go ahead, Huell.
They are
I
so
won't
good.
charge you any.
They are
That's
so
expensive
good.
Grape.
Boy, they're so sweet. The wine here has its own distinctive flavor, its own distinctive...
Between the climate, the flavor, the soils, and the people. Of course, this was put together from many immigrant families that, when you talk about an old growing region and, how did this come to be such a great growing region, it wasn't so much a commercial idea. back then. Yes, everybody wanted a winery and to make wine and to have a vineyard, but it was more the roots and the heritage of generations of family background, and that's where our background for Filippi Winery came from. It was the heritage to grow grapes and make wine. This gentleman here, in fact, he's over 70 years old. He's been around through a great part, probably grew up in the vineyards out here in Cucamonga, but he's been around, picks every year for us.
Really?
Yeah, no, pretty good.
So these are good
Yeah,
grapes?
yeah.
He's busy. He wants to get back to work.
That's right. He can't make any money unless he's picking, so.
Well, it's just, look at this. This is great. Watch them work in here. The old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And there's an old-fashioned truck. What's the deal on this truck?
This particular truck, I believe it's a 1943 Chevrolet, and it was Army surplus. It never made it to the war, and the Filippi family purchased it new. And we have the original registration for this particular truck, and it's been used in the fields. It's four-wheel drive. Out in Cucamonga, we have some very sandy soils. In the four-wheel drives, we actually had some six-wheel drives for a while, but it's the only thing in certain vineyards that can get through with full load of grape.
Because of the soil.
After a couple of hours, the workers had completed picking in the first vineyard and set out for another one. Getting there, going down the highway, first thing you notice are all the old vineyards in the area, mixed in with lots of development. In fact, when you're on the freeway, you can really see it. Some areas with lots of land and grapes. Some areas where the vineyards are much smaller because they've obviously been eaten up by development. And some areas where the vineyards have completely disappeared.
Well, Nick, we have stopped here on our way to the next vineyard because there's a huge housing development going on over here on this side of the road. Over here, we got another one going in over here, and as we were going down the road, you commented on what all of this used to be.
Well, Huell, what you're looking at here used to be just a sea, literally an ocean of vines. That's all you could see as far as the horizon were grapevines. And today, it's literally with urban sprawl and development of housing projects, it's the bulldozer right behind you, ripping the vines out with the picking crew right in front of it. If you can keep the developer from holding his equipment off until you can get the vines, the grapes picked off the vines.
You mean you have literally had to go in and pick grapes a couple of minutes before the bulldozers got there?
As fantastic as it sounds, you're harvesting fruit and there's bulldozers right behind you, just moving the vines right off the ground, and within just a couple of weeks they've got slabs poured or a new concrete tilt-up building or a housing project like you see down here.
Well, I mean, I know we have to have development, but that's kind of depressing. What's going to happen?
Well, we're fighting for trying to reestablish more of an agricultural preserve sort of status. And we won't be able to save all this expensive land, but we may be able to save just enough of it so the last remaining wineries can stay and grow grapes and operating just like they have for all their past generations.
Yeah. Now, Nick, we've come to another field here, and what's happening now? How do you decide your plan of attack here?
Now what we've done is one block of this particular Zinfandel vineyard, another dry farmed, very old vineyard here in the Cucamonga Valley, is ready to be harvested. The chemical composition is just right, and this is set for just a different type of wine.
And they're getting ready to pick. Now, you told me this vineyard isn't long for this world either.
No, this particular vineyard, in fact, as you see over here on the horizon, we've got an overpass for a new freeway system.
There are the houses over there.
And they'll be encroaching into this vineyard, and I would imagine it doesn't have much more than a year or two at all left in here.
So this might be one of the last times that we're working this field.
In fact, every year we don't know with vineyards like this whether or not it's going to be our last vintage. So it becomes a very special vintage every year for these particular vineyards because we never know.
Now, can you move these?
Now we can
You can't move them, can you?
well, physically we can move the wood, but it's not rational to pull up every vine. What we can do though is if we like this particular wood, if we like the style of fruit that it produces, literally a grapevine has a DNA profile, just like people do, and how they match from one to the next. Well, if we decide that we like this particular clone of Zinfandel grape and we want to move it someplace out and they're going to take this out, we can cut this particular shoot off here and we can graft it into another vine, or we could literally plant it straight into the ground just like these vineyards originally were.
But the problem is you got to find land, and you're running out of land around here.
As we run out of land, we look for imaginative ways to put a little bit back together so we can preserve this area as a grape growing district. We do things like we look for public-private ventures to where we say, okay, there's 10 acres or there's 5 acres or just 2 acres and we need 12, 15 years and we'll plant it fresh and new and hopefully we'll get enough fruit out of that and enough recognition through that the owners will want to keep it and hang on and keep going with it.
Yeah. Boy, this has, I don't know whether television can pick it up or not, but this really has the ambiance, the flavor of what it must have been like here 100 years ago doing this.
It's an amazing feeling that you get when you're out here in the vineyards during the harvest. It's literally a celebration. I said this to you before, Huell, that once it gets in your blood, you just can't get it out. And if you smell the smells that you're going to catch later on today when we crush this fruit and go through the beginning process of making the wine, that smell, you're going to be asking me to be my assistant here later on today.
Well, it all starts out here in the vineyard itself, and boy, it's the first time I've ever really walked through a vineyard when the harvesting is actually going on, and it really has a good feel to it. Look out here. We're looking at this old vineyard, which is how old?
This particular vineyard is probably right around 75 years old.
And there's the new freeway right over there, the new housing track right over there. It's heading this way, but at least for the time being, we've still got this place.
For the time being, Huell.
Okay, we are now at the winery itself, and fellas, you were telling me this is where you literally grew up.
Yeah, we were all raised here. My folks lived here, and we were raised on this side of the street. And my grandparents, who are still alive today, 93 and 85, lived there.
Wow.
And we were surrounded by about 300 acres of great, luscious grapes.
And now you're surrounded by 5 million acres of
concrete buildings. So we're moving uptown to Rancho Cucamonga, where you saw some of the land today. And yeah, the buildings are getting closer and closer.
So you all have held on, but it hasn't been easy, has it?
No, a lot of work. It's been 75 years since they started here, back in 1922.
A lot of people quitting, but you all decided to stay here.
Yeah, there's a few families in the valley that are still involved, and obviously we're one of them. And we're a hardy bunch, all of us.
Gino, what's happening here? A lot of activity.
Well, a lot of grapes, too. You remember all those grapes you were seeing picked this morning? Well, they're coming in now to the winery, and we're going to watch them being processed into juice.
Okay, now they're dumping them out. Oh, my God. Whoa.
Now, there's 2 jobs here. We've got to make sure the fruit's coming in at the right amount because we don't want to put too much fruit in the hopper at once. And I'm also removing leaves because the leaves are bad. The winemaker doesn't want any excess leaf or unnecessary plant growth in with the fruit.
Now, shouldn't you be pulling those things out now?
Yeah, but I need to watch my flow to make sure I don't have too much.
Oh, so it's a timing thing here.
Right. So when I got an empty area, I just roll out a few more. And this is part of the reasoning for Nick wanting to be gentle with the fruit. It carries on throughout the process so that he gets excellent fruit into his juice product.
So you don't want to hurt these grapes from start to finish. You treat them like with kid gloves.
That's the idea, and that's the direction from the winemaker. And as you know, we listen to the winemaker.
All right, now that's what's happening up there. Let's get down here. And what's happening down here?
Okay, what we're doing here is we're trying to separate the berries from the stems. We're going to recrush the berries so that we could get some more juice out of them.
Okay, so the stems come out this side.
Correct.
Boy, we got a lot of stems here. And look over here. Nick, what do we got here? These are the...
Well, what's happening here is that now the grapes have come out of the field, are now being destemmed and are going into these half-ton bins, and we're going to actually ferment the wine right in these half-ton bins.
Boy, there is juice flying everywhere here. It's really coming out.
What happens is this crusher is designed to just take part of the berries and squish them up just to give us enough juice to start.
Let's stand back over here. We're getting attacked with grape juice.
Get a little sticky here, Huell.
Absolutely.
And so then what we're going to do is we'll move this inside, and we're going to cool them down, and we'll let them chill down for a couple days. We'll just let them start breaking down naturally, and then in a couple days here, I'll inoculate them with a hybrid yeast culture and some enzymes, and we'll get the fermentation process going.
So this is the first stop from the fields.
Yeah, this is the first stop.
These are the grapes that we saw this morning being picked.
Right.
They go up there, come down here, they're separated. The stems are separated off of them. And this is the product right here that we're going to make that good Cucamonga Valley wine out of.
This is actually slated for a project called Rochelle, which is the name of my second oldest daughter.
All right, now there's more in here, isn't there?
Yeah, there's actually some of the wine is fermenting right now from grapes harvested earlier this last week. And then we have, of course, some more that are ripe today that we're bringing in that are going to be added to that whole blend.
Okay, we're inside the winery, and boy, it smells good in here. It really smells... Wait a minute, what are you doing?
Well, what I'm doing here is we have pumice that's been fermenting with the juice of some earlier harvested fruit that's part of this blend. And
Can I put my hand in there?
Oh yeah, put it in. Put it in. If you've never done it, it's an experience.
Oh my gosh. Oh my... Now, is this equivalent to stomping on it with your feet, kind of?
Well, this is actually a little bit easier on it than stomping your feet, and the process that we're going through here is just a real gentle process. And
oh, that's right. We got to be gentle.
Makes a very soft wine.
Boy, this feels so weird.
So,
what would this taste like?
Right now, it's a little harsh. It's a little.
So I wouldn't
bitter.
want to taste it.
No, it's not like a finished wine product whatsoever. But and then here, of course, what you have is a non-fermented. This is the must that's fresh in from the field.
This is what Joe just brought it in.
Right.
This is what we...
And what we're trying to do with this is I want to hold off fermentation for a couple of days at least and let the berries start breaking down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of this dry ice that's compressed liquid CO2.
I've never heard of this.
I'm going to use it to just cool down this must. It's about 60 degrees, but I'm going to take it down about another 10 degrees and cool it.
Must is...
The must.
Must.
Yeah, the must is actually...
That's what this is.
The crushed juice. And as it's fermenting, we still call it the must. And it'll eventually end up, of course, into the wine product.
This is strange.
Now this, of course, as this dry ice melts, its byproduct, similar to alcoholic fermentation, is carbon dioxide. So it...
Now, they didn't used to do it this way, did they, 100 years ago?
No, not 100 years ago. I don't think they had. But they literally did use blocks of ice that they threw in for refrigeration back 100 years ago.
It wouldn't water it down?
Oh, yeah, it does. It waters it down. but I think with as high as the sugars can get at times.
Look at this.
And of course, here, if I can, and I can take, as long as I don't get this stuff sticking to my skin, I can push it down in and mix it.
Gosh.
And that way we get the must cooled down real nice.
Oh my gosh. Now this is the part of making wine I knew nothing about.
Well, this is actually something I do just for fun. No, but really it does have a practical purpose, and it does make for that kind of scientific effect, though, doesn't it?
Can I put my hand in there?
Yeah,
I'm
go
not
ahead
going
and
to
put
get
it in.
burned
You'll
with
feel the cold. You'll feel the cold.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's freezing.
Yeah. And each one of those pellets are minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my gosh.
As long as you don't squeeze onto one of them, it won't stick to your skin and burn you.
Boy, this feels really strange.
And of course, you can see how quickly it takes the temperatures down in there, and I get instantaneous response, and that way I inhibit the fermentation process.
Fellas, we have had a great day. These are the Filippi brothers, Gino, Joe, stickiest handshakes in town. We have had a great day here with you all. Thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure having you.
This has been a lot of fun, and we have learned a lot too.
Well, it's been fun having you here, and we created some just for you.
Oh,
It's a special
thank you.
bottle of wine,
Rochelle.
Rochelle. It's our reserve selection of a blend of different Cucamonga Valley grapes we grow, and Nick's signature on it. It's a wonderful bottle of wine.
Well, I'm glad to have a bottle of wine. Otherwise, I just have to lick my arm and make do with that.
And hope it ferments.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.